Jake had been going to the same coffee shop for 3 months. Every morning at 7:30, he would order his usual black coffee and sit by the window to check emails before work. The place was small and cozy, with mismatched chairs and the smell of fresh pastries filling the air. That's when he first noticed her. She was always there before him, sitting in the corner with a thick book and a cup of coffee that seemed to last for hours. Her brown hair fell over her face as she read, and she had this habit of biting her lower lip when she was really focused on something. What caught his attention wasn't how pretty she was, though she definitely was. It was something else entirely. She looked sad. Not the kind of sad you feel when you have a bad day, but the deep kind that seems to live inside someone's bones. The kind that makes you wonder what happened to make someone carry themselves like they're apologizing for taking up space. Jake was curious about people. He always had been. His friends used to tease him about it in college, saying he noticed things others missed. It's like how the cashier at the grocery store always seemed tired on Thursdays, or how his neighbor only played loud music when it was raining. He couldn't help but wonder about the stories behind what he saw. The coffee shop girl became part of his morning routine, even though they had never spoken. He would glance over at her corner table, wondering what she was reading. The books were always different, but they seemed to be about psychology or self-help. Heavy topics for someone who looked like she was carrying enough weight already. One Tuesday morning, everything changed. Jake was running late. His alarm hadn't gone off, and he was rushing to grab his coffee and get to work. He had his laptop bag slung over his shoulder and was checking his phone when it happened. The girl from the corner table was hurrying toward the door looking flustered about something. She bumped right into him, and his laptop bag went flying. Papers scattered everywhere. His coffee cup hit the floor with a crash that made the whole shop go quiet for a moment. Jake's first thought was about his laptop, hoping it wasn't broken. But when he looked up at her face, all of that disappeared. She looked terrified. Not embarrassed or sorry the way most people would be after bumping into someone. Actually terrified, like she was waiting for something bad to happen. Oh no, I'm so sorry, she said, immediately dropping to her knees to gather his papers. Her hands were shaking as she tried to stack them neatly. I'm such a mess. Sorry, I'm really sorry. Hey, it's okay, Jake said, kneeling down beside her. Really? No big deal? These things happen? But she wasn't listening. She kept apologizing, over and over, like she was trying to prevent some disaster that only she could see coming. I'll pay for your coffee, she said quickly. And if your computer's broken, I'll pay for that too. I'm so clumsy. Should've been watching where I was going. Jake watched her face as she spoke, and something in her words made his chest tight. There was a practiced quality to her apologies, like she had given them many times before. Like she was used to people being upset with her? You know what? She said, still gathering papers with shaking hands. You can yell at me if you want. I mean, I deserve it. I wasn't paying attention, and now I've ruined your morning. Go ahead. Those words hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. You can yell at me if you want, like it was normal, like it was expected. I'm not going to yell at you, he said gently, placing his hand over hers to stop her frantic paper gathering. I promise. It was an accident. We're both okay, and that's what matters. Looked up at him then, really looked at him, and Jake saw something flicker across her face. Surprise, maybe. Like kindness was the last thing she had expected. The coffee shop owner, Mrs. Chen, came over with a mop and a warm smile. Don't worry about the mess, she said. Happens all the time. What? Let me get you both fresh coffee on the house. The girl tried to protest, saying she should pay for the coffee and the cleanup, but Mrs. Chen just waved her away with a laugh. Nonsense, you're both good customers. These things happen. As they waited for their fresh coffee, Jake learned her name was Lily. She worked at the community center downtown, helping families who were going through tough times. When she talked about her job, her whole face changed. The sadness was still there, but it was mixed with something else. Purpose, maybe? It's like helping other people was the only time she felt truly useful. I love what I do, she said, stirring sugar into her coffee. I mean, it's hard sometimes. People are dealing with really difficult situations. but when I can help someone, even in a small way, it feels like I'm doing something that matters. Jake noticed how she talked about her work. It wasn't about the satisfaction of solving problems or the joy of making a difference. It was about being useful, about mattering because she could help. They talked for 20 minutes before Jake realized he was going to be late for work. But somehow he didn't care. There was something about Lily that made him want to understand her story. In a nosy way, but in the way you want to understand a puzzle that's missing important pieces. When they finally said goodbye, Lily thanked him again for not being angry about the spilled coffee. As if his basic human decency was some kind of gift she didn't deserve. "Maybe I'll see you tomorrow morning," Jake said as they headed toward the door. Lily smiled, and for just a moment, the sadness lifted from her eyes. "I'd like that," she said. "I'm here most mornings. Same table, same book habit." As Jake walked to work, he couldn't stop thinking about her words. "You can yell at me if you want." Like she was so used to people being disappointed in her that she had learned to offer up their anger as a way to get it over with quickly. He thought about the way she had apologized, not just for bumping into him, but for existing in a way that might inconvenience someone else. The way she had immediately offered to pay for damages that weren't even her responsibility. Most of all, he thought about the surprise in her eyes when he had been kind to her. The kindness was so unusual in her life that it caught her off guard. Jake had always been good at reading people, but Lily was different. She wasn't just sad or lonely. She was someone who had learned to survive by making herself small, by being useful, by accepting blame for things that weren't her fault. The next morning, he found himself looking forward to seeing her again. Not because he wanted to fix her or save her, but because he sensed that underneath all that sadness was someone interesting, kind, who had simply forgotten that she deserved to take up space in the world when he walked into the coffee shop. The next day, she was there in her usual corner, reading another thick book. When she saw him, she smiled and waved. It was a small gesture, but it made Jake's day brighter. He had no idea that this simple coffee shop friendship would change both of their lives forever. 3 months had passed since Jake and Lily started meeting for coffee every morning. What began as casual conversations had grown into something deeper. They talked about books, work, and life in general. But the more Jake got to know Lily, the more he noticed things that bothered him. It started with small things that might seem normal to most people, but Jake was paying attention. He always paid attention, like the time they planned to see a movie together. Jake had asked what she wanted to watch, and Lily had given her usual response. "Whatever you want is fine with me," she said with a smile. "I'm not picky," Jake pushed a little. "Come on, there must be something you're interested in. What kind of movies do you usually like?" Lily looked uncomfortable, like he was asking her to solve a difficult math problem. "I really don't mind. You pick something good, and I'll enjoy it. That's what I always do." That phrase stuck with him. That's what I always do. Like she had trained herself to have no preferences. When they went to restaurants, the same thing happened. Lily would study the menu for a long time, then look up at Jake and say, "What looks good to you? I'll have whatever you're having." Jake started testing this. He would suggest restaurants he knew she didn't like, based on things she had mentioned before. Sure enough, she would agree with enthusiasm, even if he picked a seafood place, and she had once mentioned being allergic to shellfish. "Wait," he said one day when she agreed to go to Red Lobster. "Didn't you tell me you're allergic to shellfish?" Lily looked panicked for a moment, like she had been caught doing something wrong. "Oh, that's okay. They have other things on the menu. I can find something." "Lily, why would you agree to go somewhere that could make you sick?" She was quiet for a long moment, picking at her coffee cup. "I guess I just didn't want to be difficult." "You seemed excited about it." Jake hadn't been excited about it at all. He had been testing her, and now he felt terrible about it. The pattern showed up everywhere once he started looking for it. Lily would cancel their plans if anyone at work needed help with something. She would stay late every single day, not because her job required it, but because someone always needed just one more favor. Her boss seemed to know exactly how to use this. Jake heard stories about weekend work that wasn't urgent, about Lily covering for coworkers who simply didn't want to do their jobs, about her taking on projects that weren't even in her department. "Why don't you just say no sometimes?" Jake asked after she told him about spending her entire Saturday organizing files that could have waited until Monday. Lily looked at him like he had suggested she'd start speaking a foreign language. I can't just say no. They need help, and I'm good at organizing. Besides, what else was I going to do on Saturday? I don't know. Something for yourself. Something you enjoy. Another blank look. Like what? Jake realized that Lily genuinely didn't know what she enjoyed doing. Every hobby she mentioned was connected to helping someone else. She liked cooking because she could make meals for sick neighbors. She enjoyed reading because she could recommend books to people who asked. Even her exercise routine was about being strong enough to help people move furniture. The turning point came on a Thursday afternoon. Jake had finished work early and decided to surprise Lily at the community center. When he walked in, he saw her at the front desk, surrounded by 3 different people who all seemed to be demanding her attention at once. A woman was complaining loudly about paperwork that hadn't been filed fast enough. A man was insisting that Lily personally drive to his house to pick up documents he had forgotten to bring. Another woman was asking Lily to babysit her kids over the weekend because her regular sitter had canceled. Jake watched Lily handle all 3 requests with patience and grace, even though none of them were really her job. She apologized to the woman about the paperwork, even though Jake could see the papers clearly marked with yesterday's date, offered to stay late to help the man with his documents. She agreed to think about the babysitting request. What bothered Jake the most was how these people talked to her. It's not like she was doing them favors, but like she owed them something. Like her time and energy belonged to them. After the crowd cleared, Jake approached the desk. Lily looked exhausted. Busy day? He asked. Lily laughed, but it didn't sound happy. Just the usual. People need help and I'm here to help them. Do you ever get tired of it? Tired of helping people? No, of course not. It's my job. I don't mean your actual job. I mean the way people treat you like you're their personal assistant for everything. Lily's face changed. She looked confused and a little hurt. They don't treat me badly. They just know I'm someone they can count on. Jake wanted to argue, but he could see that Lily genuinely believed what she was saying. In her mind, being useful was the same thing as being valued. That evening, they went for a walk in the park near Lily's apartment. Jake had been thinking all day about what he had witnessed, and he finally decided to ask the question that had been bothering him for weeks. Lily, can I ask you something personal? She nodded, though she looked nervous. Were your parents the kind of people who expected a lot from you when you were growing up? Lily was quiet for a long time. They walked past the playground, past the pond where ducks were swimming in the evening light. Jake was starting to think she wasn't going to answer when she finally spoke. My parents weren't bad people, she said slowly. They just had high expectations. My dad worked 2 jobs, and my mom was always stressed about money. I learned early that the best way to help was to not cause problems and to be useful when I could. What did being useful look like? Taking care of my little brother while they worked, keeping the house clean, getting good grades so they had something to be proud of, not asking for things we couldn't afford. Jake could hear something in her voice, a sadness that went deeper than anything he had heard before. I was the good kid, she continued. I never got in trouble, never complained, never asked for much. And when I did those things, when I was helpful and quiet and good, they would tell me how proud they were of me, how I was their little helper. And when you weren't being helpful, Lily stopped walking. I don't know. I never really stopped. Out. He was beginning to understand that Lily had learned a very specific lesson as a child, that love came with conditions, that her worth was tied to her usefulness, that being wanted meant being needed. The thing is, Lily said, starting to walk again, it worked. I mean, people like me. I have friends. I'm good at my job. People can count on me. Jake wanted to point out that the people who had been demanding her time at the community center didn't seem like friends. They seemed like people who had learned to take advantage of her kindness. But he knew that saying that would only hurt her. Instead, he asked another question. What do you do when you're not helping someone else? Lily thought about it for a long moment. I read. I clean my apartment. I plan meals for the week. You ever do anything just because it makes you happy? Another long pause. I guess helping people makes me happy? But Jake could see that it wasn't really happiness in her eyes when she talked about helping people. It was relief. It's the relief of knowing she was useful, that she had earned her place in other people's lives. As they reached Lily's apartment building, Jake realized that his friend was living a life built entirely around other people's needs. She had learned to disappear herself so completely that she didn't even know who she was. Nobody needed her help. And the saddest part was that she thought this was normal. She thought this was how friendship worked, how love worked, how life worked. Jake said goodnight and walked home, his mind spinning with everything he had learned. He cared about Lily, but he was starting to understand that caring about her meant seeing a problem she couldn't see herself. The question was, what was he going to do about it? 6 months into their friendship, Jake thought he understood Lily pretty well. He'd learned to read the signs when she was overwhelmed, when she was pretending to be okay, and when she was about to agree to something that would make her miserable. What he didn't see coming was the conversation that would change everything between them. It started with a concert ticket. Lily had been excited about this show for weeks. It was a small band she had discovered on the radio, and she had saved up money to buy a ticket the moment they went on sale. Jake had never seen her so genuinely happy about something that was just for her. "I can't believe I actually bought it," she had told him over coffee. "I kept thinking I should save the money for something more practical, but I really wanted to go. The music helps me think, you know?" Jake had been proud of her for doing something purely because she wanted to. It felt like progress. The concert was on a Saturday night. Lily had planned her whole weekend around it. Was going to spend Saturday afternoon getting ready. They buy a new shirt, grab dinner at the little Italian place near the venue. She talked about it like it was a vacation. On Friday afternoon, Jake got a text from her that made his stomach drop. "Can't go to the concert tomorrow. Boss needs help moving apartments. Maybe next time." Jake stared at the message for a full minute. Maybe next time. Like this band was going to come back to their small town anytime soon. Like she could just buy another ticket with money she didn't have. He called her immediately. "Lily, what happened with the concert?" "Oh, it's no big deal," she said, but Jake could hear the disappointment in her voice. "Mr. Peterson's lease is up, and he needs to be out of his apartment by Sunday. His moving truck comes tomorrow, and..." He asked if I could help. I couldn't say no. "Why couldn't you say no?" "Because he needs help, Jake. He's my boss, and he's been really good to me at work." Jake knew Mr. Peterson. He had met him once when he picked Lily up from work. The man was perfectly capable of hiring professional movers or asking his family. To help, he asked Lily because he knew she would say yes, and because he knew she wouldn't charge him for it. "Lily, you've been looking forward to this concert for weeks." "I know, but this is more important. Mr. Peterson really needs me." "Did he ask anyone else to help before he asked you?" There was a pause. "I don't know. Probably. But I'm the one who said yes." "Did he offer to pay you for your weekend?" Another pause. "It's not about money. He's helped me a lot with my job. This is the least I can do." Jake felt frustration building in his chest. "Lily, when has he helped you?" "You do twice as much work as anyone else in that office. That's not true, isn't it? You stay late every day. You cover for people when they call in sick. You organize office parties with your own money. When exactly has Mr. Peterson helped you?" Lily was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. "He gave me the job. He gave you the job because you're good at it, because you work harder than anyone else he could have. Hired, that's not a favor, Lily. That's business. Why are you being like this?" She asked, and Jake could hear that she was starting to cry. "Why does it matter so much?" "Because you matter. Because you deserve to do things that make you happy. Because that concert ticket cost you money you didn't have extra of. And you bought it anyway because for once you did something just for yourself. I can do things for myself anytime. When? When do you ever do anything just for yourself?" Couldn't answer that question, and they both knew it. Jake drove over to her apartment that evening. He found her sitting on her couch, still in her work clothes, staring at the concert ticket on her coffee table. "I could still go," she said when he sat down beside her. "The moving isn't until the morning. I could go to the concert and just be tired tomorrow, but you won't. No, I can't let him down." Jake looked at his friend, Lily looked at her and saw something that broke his heart. Lily wasn't just tired. She wasn't just disappointed. She looked defeated. Like she had given up on the idea that her own wants and needs could ever be as important as other people's. "Can I ask you something?" Jake said. Lily nodded. "Do you think Mr. Peterson would cancel his plans to help you move if you needed it?" Lily started to answer quickly, then stopped. Jake could see her thinking about it, really thinking about it. "I don't know," she said finally. "You think any of the people at work who ask you to cover their shifts would cover yours if you needed them too?" "Maybe some of them. Have you ever asked?" "No, why not?" Lily was quiet for a long time. Jake waited, knowing that this was important. Because she said finally, "If I ask and they say no, then I'll know for sure that they don't care about me the way I care about them." There it was. The truth that Lily had been running from without even knowing it. "And if they say yes," Jake asked gently, "then I owe them something back." Jake felt something heavy settle in his chest. "Lily, do you think that's what friendship is? People owing each other things?"
Isn't it?
The question came out so quietly, so uncertainly, that Jake had to take a deep breath before he could respond. "No," he said. "It's not." Lily looked at him with confusion in her eyes. "Then what is it?" "It's people caring about each other without keeping score. It's wanting good things for your friends even when it doesn't benefit you. It's knowing that someone likes spending time with you even when you can't do anything for them." Lily shook her head. "That's not how it works in real life." "Why not?" "Because everyone wants something. Everyone needs something. And if you can't give them what they need, they find someone who can." Jay realized that they had reached the heart of everything. This wasn't just about being helpful or being nice. This was about Lily's deepest fear, that if she wasn't useful, she would be alone. "Lily," he said carefully, "what would happen if you stopped doing favors for people? Stop needing me, and then what?" "Then they would stop wanting me around." Jake looked at the concert ticket on the coffee table, then back at his friend, who was so convinced of her own worthlessness that she couldn't imagine being loved, just for who she was. "What if that's not true?" he asked. Lily laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Then I guess I'll never know, will I? 'Cause this is who I am. This is what I do. I help people. I'm useful. It's the only thing I'm really good at." She picked up the concert ticket and looked at it one more time. "Everyone uses me eventually anyway," she said, and her voice was so tired, so resigned, that it made Jake's chest hurt, at least this way. "I get to choose how." Then she looked directly at him, and Jake saw something in her eyes that he had never seen before. It wasn't sadness or fear. It was acceptance. The kind of acceptance that comes when you've given up hoping for something better. "Use me however you want," she said quietly. "I'm used to it."
Ow.
Those words hit Jake like a physical blow. "Use me however you want." She was giving him the same permission she gave everyone else. Permission to take what he needed from her without worrying about what she needed in return in that moment. Jake understood that Lily had never experienced unconditional friendship. She had never known what it felt like to be wanted just for who she was, not for what she could do. Every relationship in her life had been transactional, even if she was the only one keeping track of the transactions. Jake made a decision that night, sitting on Lily's couch with a concert ticket between them that represented everything wrong with how the world treated her. He was going to refuse her offer, not because he didn't care about her, but because he cared too much to be another person who used her kindness against her. He was going to do something that no one had ever done for Lily before. He was going to love her enough to say no to what she was offering, and yes to who she is. Could become if someone gave her the chance to find out who that was. "I'm not going to use you," he said quietly. Lily looked confused. "What do you mean?" I'm not going to be another person who takes advantage of the fact that you can't say no. I'm not going to let you disappear yourself to make my life easier? I don't understand." Jake picked up the concert ticket and handed it back to her. "I think you should go to this concert." "I can't." "Already told Mr. Peterson. Tell him you changed your mind." "I can't do that." "Yes, you can. I'm going to help you figure out how." For the first time in months, Jake saw something flicker in Lily's eyes that looked like hope. It was small and fragile and scared, but it was there. The real work was about to begin. Jake's decision to help Lily wasn't some grand romantic gesture from a movie. It wasn't dramatic or flashy. Instead, it was a series of small, everyday choices that slowly began to chip away at everything Lily believed about how relationships worked. It started the very next morning after their conversation about the concert. Lily had texted him early, saying she had talked to Mr. Peterson and managed to go to the concert after all. She sounded happy in her message, but Jake could read between the lines. She had probably agreed to work extra hours the following week to make up for it. When they met for coffee, Lily seemed different. Not exactly happy, but not as defeated as she had been the night before. "How was the show?" Jake asked. "It was amazing," she said, and for the first time in months, her smile looked real. "I almost didn't go. I kept thinking about all the reasons I should stay home and prepare for the moving day. But I'm glad I went." "What changed your mind?" Lily stirred her coffee. Slowly. "Something you said. About deserving to do things that make me happy. I kept thinking about that." Jake felt a small spark of hope, but he knew this was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Jake started doing something that confused Lily completely. He started saying no to her offers to help. When she offered to proofread his work presentation, he thanked her but said he had already hired someone to do it. When she wanted to skip her pottery class to help him rearrange his furniture, he told her he had decided to wait until the weekend and asked if she wanted to go to dinner after her class instead. But the real test came when Lily did what she always did when someone didn't need her help. She started trying harder to make herself useful. "I could cook dinner for you this week," she offered. "I know you've been working late, and I make a great lasagna." "That's really sweet of you," Jake said, "but I actually enjoy cooking. It helps me relax after work." Lily looked confused. "But I could save you time." "I don't want to save time. I like the time I spend cooking." "What if I helped you cook? We could do it together." Jake could see what was happening. Lily was looking for any way to make herself necessary to him. The idea that he might want to spend time with her without needing anything from her was completely foreign to her. "Lily," he said gently, "what if we just hung out? No cooking, no helping, no projects. Just spending time together. What would we do?" The question broke Jake's heart a little. Lily genuinely didn't know what people did together when nobody needed help with anything. "We could go for a walk, talk about books, listen to music, watch a movie, just be friends." "But that seems like a waste of time for you. Why would spending time with you be a waste of time?" Lily didn't have an answer for that. The hardest part for Jake was watching Lily's other relationships begin to shift. Her boss started getting annoyed when she began setting small boundaries. When she said she couldn't work late on Friday because she had plans, Mr. Peterson acted like she was being unreasonable. "I thought I could count on you," he said, loud enough for the whole office to hear. "I guess I was wrong." Lily came to Jake almost in tears after that conversation. "Maybe I made a mistake," she said. "Maybe I'm being selfish." "What were your Friday night plans?" Jake asked. "My pottery class? The one you've been taking for 2 months? It's the one you pay for with your own money?" "Yes, but Lily, going to a class you signed up for isn't selfish. It's normal." But Jake could see that Lily didn't believe him. In her world, putting her own needs first, even for something as simple as a pottery class, felt like betraying everyone who counted on her. The friendship casualties were even harder to watch. Lily had a friend named Kate who called her almost every weekend with some crisis that needed immediate attention. Kate's car broke down, and she needed a ride to work for a week. Kate's boyfriend broke up with her, and she needed someone to sit with her while she cried. Kate needed help moving, needed someone to watch her dog, needed a loan to pay her rent. Jake had never heard Kate call Lily just to see how she was doing. When Lily started saying she couldn't always drop everything to help Kate, the phone calls became less frequent, and they stopped altogether. "Kate hasn't called me in 2 weeks, Lily told Jake one morning. She looked genuinely worried. "I think she's mad at me." "Did you two ever talk about anything besides her problems?" Jake asked. Lily thought about it. "We used to. When we first became friends, we would talk about everything. Movies, work, funny things that happened during the day." "When did that change?" "I don't know. Gradually, I guess. Kate started having more problems, and I wanted to be a good friend and help her. Do you think Kate would have stopped being your friend if you hadn't helped her with all those problems?" Lily was quiet for a long time. I was afraid to find out. Jake realized that Lily had been living in fear for so long that she didn't even recognize it anymore. Fear that people would leave if she wasn't useful. Fear that saying no would mean being alone. Fear that her true self, without all the helping and the people-pleasing, wouldn't be enough to keep anyone around. The breaking point came when Lily's family got involved. Lily's brother called her on a Thursday night. His regular babysitter had quit, and he needed someone to watch his kids every weekend while he worked his second job. Not just this weekend, but every weekend for the foreseeable future. Old Lily would have said yes immediately. New Lily, the one who was slowly learning that her time had value, hesitated. "I don't know," she told her brother. "Weekends are when I take my pottery class and spend time with friends." Her brother's response was swift and harsh. "Since when are you too good to help family?" he demanded. "Mom and Dad raised you better than this? I can't believe you're being so selfish." When Lily told Jake about the conversation, she was shaking. "Maybe he's right," she said. "Maybe I am being selfish. They're family. Family is supposed to help each other." "Does your brother help you when you need it?" Jake asked. "I don't usually need help, but when you do..." Lily couldn't think of a single time her brother had helped her with anything. But she could think of dozens of times she had helped him. "That's different," she said weakly. "How is it different?" "Because I'm good at helping people. It's what I do." Jake looked at his friend, this woman who had spent so many years making herself small and useful and available to everyone else. He felt a surge of protective anger toward all the people who had taken advantage of her kindness. "Lily," he said carefully, "what would happen if you stopped being the person who helps everyone else and started being the person who lives her own life?" "I don't know how to do that. What if we figured it out together? What if I'm not interesting enough? What if when I stop being useful, there's nothing left worth knowing?" There it was, the fear underneath all the other fears. Lily was terrified that her true self, the person she was when she wasn't helping or pleasing or fixing everyone else's problems, would be boring, unworthy of love. Not enough. Jake looked at this woman, who noticed when the homeless man outside the coffee shop was cold, and quietly left him her scarf, remembered everyone's birthdays and favorite foods, read books about psychology because she wanted to understand people better, who had beautiful hands from working with clay, and a laugh that made everyone around her smile. "Lily," he said, "you are so much more than what you do for other people. You're kind and smart and funny and creative. You notice things others miss. You make the world better just by being in it." Lily started crying then, not the quiet tears she usually cried, but deep, shaking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere she had kept locked away for years. "I don't know how to believe that," she whispered. "Then let me believe it for both of us until you can believe it for yourself." Jake realized that helping Lily wasn't going to be about teaching her to say no, though that was part of it. It wasn't going to be about setting boundaries, though that was important too. It was going to be about helping her discover who she was when nobody needed anything from her. It was going to be about showing her that she was worth knowing, worth loving, worth keeping around, not because of what she could do, but because of who she was. It was going to be the hardest thing either of them had ever done, because it meant Lily would have to risk the thing she feared most, being herself, and trusting that it would be enough. But Jake was willing to take that risk with her, because some friendships are worth fighting for, even when the fight is against a lifetime of believing you're not worth the effort. 1 year later, Jake sat in the same coffee shop where he had first met Lily, but everything was different now. She was still sitting in her corner spot, but instead of hunching over a self-help book, she was sketching in a notebook. Her pottery. Class had sparked an interest in art that surprised everyone, including herself. When she looked up and saw him, her smile was genuine and easy. Not the careful, people-pleasing smile she used to wear, but something real and unguarded. "Sorry, I'm a few minutes late," she said as he sat down. "I was finishing a drawing." Jake noticed something important in that simple sentence. She had apologized for being late, which was normal, but she hadn't followed it with a dozen more apologies or offers to make it up to him. She had simply explained what happened and moved on. "Can I see it?" he asked, nodding toward her notebook. Lily hesitated. For just a moment, then turned the notebook around. It was a sketch of the coffee shop, but drawn from her perspective in the corner. Jake could see the counter, the other customers, even himself sitting at their usual table. But what struck him most was how she had drawn the people. Everyone looked relaxed, content, going about their daily lives without urgency or stress. "It's really good," Jake said, and he meant it. "Thanks. I never thought I was artistic, but my pottery teacher says I have good instincts for seeing shapes and shadows." Jake remembered the old Lily who would have immediately deflected a compliment. Like that, she would have said something like, "Oh, it's nothing special," or "I just got lucky." This new version of Lily accepted praise without immediately trying to give it back. The changes in Lily hadn't happened overnight. There had been setbacks. Moments when she slipped back into old patterns. Times when the fear of being alone had almost convinced her to go back to saying yes to everything. But slowly, with Jake's support and her own growing confidence, she had started to build a life that belonged to her. The first big test had come about 6 months earlier. Lily had met someone. His name was Ben, and he was nothing like the men she had dated before. He was a librarian who loved books as much as she did, but more importantly, he seemed genuinely interested in what she thought about them. When they went to dinner, he asked her what she wanted to eat. When she tried to defer to his choice, he waited patiently until she picked something for herself. Jake had been nervous about Ben at first. He worried that Lily would fall back into her old patterns, trying to make herself indispensable to this new person in her life. But Ben seemed to understand something important about Lily without Jake having to explain it. "I like spending time with you," Ben had told her after their third date. "I don't need you to do anything for me. I just enjoy your company." Lily had called Jake that night, confused and a little scared. "I don't understand," she had said. "What if he gets bored? What if he realizes I'm not that interesting? What if he already knows how interesting you are, and that's why he wants to keep seeing you?" Jake had replied. The relationship with Ben became a kind of laboratory for everything Lily was learning about herself. For the first time in her life, she was in a relationship with someone who didn't want her to be smaller, quieter, or more accommodating. Ben encouraged her art, listened to her opinions, and never made her feel like she had to earn his attention. But the real transformation had come through the relationships she chose to let go of. Kate, the friend who had only called when she needed. Something had eventually stopped calling altogether when Lily started setting boundaries. At first, this had devastated Lily. But as time passed, she realized that losing Kate had made room for better friendships. She had started spending time with people from her pottery class. People who shared her interests and wanted to know her as a person, not as someone who could solve their problems. She had reconnected with an old college friend who had always liked her, but had been pushed aside by all the people who demanded more of her time and energy. Even her relationship with her family had improved, though it had taken some difficult conversations to get there. Her brother had been angry when she stopped being available to babysit every weekend. But eventually, he had found other childcare arrangements. More importantly, he had started talking to her about things other than his problems. They had begun having actual conversations about their lives, their memories, their hopes for the future. Her parents had been the hardest to navigate. They couldn't understand why their helpful, accommodating daughter had suddenly started having opinions and boundaries. But slowly, they had begun to see that this new version of Lily was happier, more confident, more genuinely present when she spent time with them. The biggest change had come in Lily's work life. Mr. Peterson had been furious when Lily stopped working unpaid overtime and covering for coworkers who simply didn't want to do their jobs. He had made her life difficult for several months, clearly hoping she would go back to being the pushover he could rely on. Instead, Lily had done something that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. She had started looking for a new job. Realized that if my boss only values me when I let him take advantage of me, then he doesn't really value me at all, she had explained to Jake. I deserve to work somewhere that appreciates what I bring to the job, not just how much extra work I'm willing to do for free. She had found a position at a nonprofit organization that focused on community outreach. Her new boss respected her boundaries, paid her fairly, and actually seemed to care about her professional development. For the first time in her career, Lily felt like she was growing instead of just surviving. But perhaps the most important change was in how Lily saw herself. "You know what's weird?" she said to Jake as they sat in the coffee shop that day. A year after their breakthrough conversation. "I used to think that if I stopped helping everyone all the time, I would be lonely. But I'm less lonely now than I've ever been." "Why do you think that is?" Jake asked. "Because the people in my life now actually want to be here. They're not here because they need something from me. They're here because they like me." Lily closed her notebook and looked around the coffee shop, the same place where their friendship had begun with spilled coffee and her desperate apologies. "I keep thinking about what you said that night when I told you to use me however you wanted," she said. "You said you weren't going to use me. At the time, I thought that meant you didn't need me. What do you think it meant now?" "Meant you cared about me enough to want me to have a choice. It's a real choice, not just the choice between being useful or being alone." Jake felt a warmth in his chest as he looked at his friend. This woman who had learned to take up space in the world, who had opinions and preferences and boundaries, who created art and laughed freely and loved people without losing herself in the process. "You know what the best part is?" Ellie continued. "I still like helping people. I still want to make a difference in the world. But now I help people because I choose to, not because I'm afraid of what will happen if I don't." She picked up her coffee cup and took a sip, looking thoughtful. "Last week, Ben asked me why I thought our relationship was working so well when my previous relationships had been so difficult. I told him it was because he was the first person who ever wanted to know who I was when nobody needed my help." Jake smiled. "And who are you when nobody needs your help?" Lily grinned back at him. "I'm still figuring that out. But for the first time in my life, I'm excited to find out." As they left the coffee shop that day, Jake reflected on the journey they had taken together. It hadn't been easy. There had been moments when he wondered if he was doing the right thing. Times when Lily had been angry with him for not letting her slip back into old patterns. Days when progress felt impossible. But watching Lily walk beside him now, he was confident and present and genuinely happy. Jake knew that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone isn't taking what they offer from a place of pain, but helping them discover what they want to offer from a place of wholeness. Lily had learned that she was worth knowing, worth loving, worth keeping around, not because of what she could do for others, but because of who she was. And in learning that lesson, she had become free to love others in a way that was healthy and sustainable and real. The girl who had once said, "Use me however you want," had become a woman who knew her own worth. That transformation had made all the difference, not just for her, but for everyone lucky enough to be truly known by her.